Hey, I'm Doug and welcome to Doppler's Gear Garage for the second video in the Groovy Gadgets video series. This time around, we're checking out my brand new onstage stands, mobile equipment stand, and for the most part, this thing is awesome. If you want to get something like an FM9 up off the ground or maybe your pedalboard so you can have hands-on access, does a great job. There are some things that I'm not so crazy about that we're going to cover in the back side of this video, but in a moment we'll walk through some of the uses and kind of how you can operate the stand pretty darn straightforward. If by chance you haven't subscribed to the channel, I want to take this moment and invite you to do so. Don't forget to ring the bell so I can let you know when more videos are going to go online. With that said, let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into the onstage stands mobile equipment stand. So now what I've done is I've taken those legs and I've taken them out and flipped them upside down, which gives me access to these two pairs of rack screw holes. Now, normally you could just put a traditional piece of rack gear in there and support it via those two pairs of holes. But what I've done is I've utilized this shelf here and I've got my Tonex on there. I've got Velcro on the top of the shelf and Velcro on the bottom of Tonex, so that puppy's not going anywhere. There's also a lip here that's keeping that in place. Now, if it were a normal piece of rack gear, the screws would go in this way. But because this shelf doesn't have threading on it, it's got larger holes, I needed to go this way and have it grab on these particular holes that are part of the unit here. So you do have some screws sticking out, which is why I kind of flipped this around. Normally this would be on the front, but now I've got it on the back just so I don't kind of bump into that. These guys aren't particularly sharp, but I might put some tape or something on there, or maybe some popcorn. That is to say the stuff that you stick in packaging, or maybe even some bubble pack, something over the top of it so you don't nail yourself on it. In any case, on the left-hand side now, there is a tension control here that I've loosened, and I can now kind of move this pretty freely. And then when you tighten it, there's basically a series of interlocking claws there that once you got it tensioned, you can feel that sucker's not going anywhere. And for the most part, as you move this thing around, you can see it's actually pretty darn steady. Now, this guy, again, is set on here with Velcro, but it's also, there's a lip there making sure that it doesn't go floating away. This shelf, in terms of being connected to the stand, that's a pretty good point of connection. Overall, super impressive. On to the next use case. So now I've brought the stand back into its original orientation. This support bar, which is great for your headphones or cables, is now back in the front. I've also extended the support arms out from the front of the frame, and you're able to control those via a tensioner that's right here and right here on either side. And once you tighten those suckers down, they are really in place, and I have not had any issue with them kind of moving forward, even when I kind of push against the front there. Now, if I lift this puppy up like that, you can see the frame there, and you can, actually, let me just move this here. These two tensioners here allow us to expand the frame, the wings, if you will. So I'm going to bring out the one side just a little bit, this guy here, and one of the things that I like to do is I kind of tap it and give it a little bit of a snap into place and then clamp it down. Now that will still allow you to pull this guy out of the frame, but it keeps it pretty snug in there and it's not going to go anywhere. Now, for that particular pedal board, it's actually wider than the frame will actually expand to. But what I've done is I've kind of set it in such a way, partially good fortune, that the bottom of the pedal board sits right against the back of the wing there on both sides. And in turn, I've used a bungee cord around the edges of the pedal board going around the bottom of the rack there, or the stand, whatever you want to call it, and holding it into place. And so this guy, although there is a little bit of movement here and there, it's pretty firmly in place. Now, that's a little tiny bit chancy, so I wouldn't necessarily endorse doing that. However, I haven't had any problems doing it, so use at your own discretion. All right, so that is a slightly older version of the stand, and there are a couple of small differences that I want to talk about, just in case you think about picking one of these up on the used market. You can be informed in terms of what to look for. So there are two main differences between my older version and this one. most notably on the structural side where the support frame meets the vertical shaft. Right there, you can see that little nub right there. When you kind of put the two together, that kind of pokes through a hole. And on the other side right there is the receptacle for an Allen wrench that's included in the packaging, so you can really tension that down. And that makes for a much snugger fit in terms of the way the support frame fits on the vertical shaft. That one, I always felt a little bit of wiggle room that made me ever so slightly uncomfortable. All right, we talked about this before. On the front of these support arms here, when you flip them upside down, they are drilled to be able to support putting a piece of rack gear or that rack shelf that I had on there. And for me, that is a deal maker. I wouldn't rebuy that one specifically for that feature, but that again is something that I would want to be able to take advantage of, being able to use those, whether it's for a piece of rack gear or again, being able to put that rack shelf. All right, there's a lot of pros about this particular guy. Again, I bought a second one and I'm getting ready to buy a third one. But there are a few cons, which we're going to talk about now. So let me preface what I'm about to say with the fact that I'm about to buy another one of these guys. The other night I was pushing the old guy around the studio and I heard a little and I looked down and we'd lost a wheel. That is now the equivalent of a three-legged dog. Not so great on mobility. That's the last video this guy's going to be in before I escort it to the retirement bin. It's headed for the trash bin. Unfortunately, it served me really, really well. Like I said, I'm going to be getting another one of these. I love them. Now, there are a couple of things I want to point out. When the wheel snapped, it's entirely possible. You kind of push a shopping cart, you can feel the wheels kind of swirl around until they're all facing that 180 degrees behind the direction they're headed in. So it might have been that literally that one wheel was diametrically opposed to the direction it was wanted to go in and just snapped from the tension. Or I pushed it up against something before then and I tensioned the plastic that's connecting this guy. Either way, it still broke. Either way, I'm going to be buying another one of these. I love these. They're great. Got this at Sweetwater. The only bit of a bummer about that whole thing was not just one hole, not just two holes, but count them, ladies and gentlemen, 3 holes in this box, none of which are Sweetwater's fault. One of the arms here bent, and literally the only wrapping material was this for kind of the main support there, and this for the bar that kind of the vertical support. I mean, seriously. It did come with directions, which were a little bit of a help. Had the included Allen wrench fallen out of one of those holes, this thing would have been unusable. Now, in terms of comments on the Sweetwater website, that's one of the places that I turn to all the time to see what kind of experience other players and musicians have had. The reviews have generally been glowing. Nobody lost a wheel. One person commented that the stand was rickety, quite possibly because their Allen wrench fell out of one of the holes in this thing. Without that Allen wrench, you can't quite get this thing tight properly. However, all the other reviews were extremely positive. So there's a link down there that's a Sweetwater affiliate link. I do make a little something on the back end. There's a link for the entire unit there, as well as the rack shelves. A couple of choices there. Like I said, those are affiliate links that help support the channel. Always appreciate it. All right. Speaking of the channel, if you haven't subscribed, would love to invite you to do so, and don't forget to ring the bell so I can let you know when more pieces of groovy gear are going to be covered in videos like this. In any case, this has been a lot of fun. This piece of gear has been great for me. Leave some comments down below if you pick one up and let me know what you think. Thanks again for watching. Cheers.